Kính thưa quý vị, hôm nay với chương trình tài chính của Money Smart, hôm nay rất vui và hân hạnh là được chào đón quý vị theo dõi chương trình. Tâm và chị Ngọc Tịnh Nguyễn cũng là làm co-host hôm nay. Hôm nay có một vị khách đặc biệt là anh từ sở cảnh sát Garden Grove, là tên là Detective Adam Nikolic, đang tiếp chuyện với chị em. Trong phần vừa rồi là mình biết về ID theft và fraud, thì mình sẽ tiếp tục hỏi câu hỏi về cái này. Tâm muốn sẽ hỏi tiếp theo là cái liên quan đến cộng đồng Việt Nam chúng ta, thì sở cảnh sát Garden Grove có tài liệu gì để giúp mình tìm hiểu cái vấn đề này nhiều hơn không? Thì Detective Nikolic, the next question we'd like to ask you is in regards to what resources does your Garden Grove Police Department, if any, have for the Vietnamese community as it relates to these topics of ID theft, fraud, etc., that are increasing so rapidly. In fact, you mentioned that it's more than doubled in terms of the credit card ATM portions compared to the previous 4 years.
Yeah, some of the resources that we will provide our victims, we essentially have an identity theft fraud guide. So essentially it's like this, it's a bifold pamphlet, and it covers just the basic stuff, kind of what we discussed previously, certain steps you can take, documentation to provide. We highly encourage if there's any type of suspicious fraud activity or any type of fraud activity at all, to contact us, file a report, because regardless on whether they get reimbursed or not, we want to try to do whatever we can to make sure that we can try to curb this as best as possible. One other thing that we have, and this is actually from the Federal Trade Commission, identitytheft.gov has something that we also pass out to our victims as well, and it goes over certain things, talking about certain steps that we have previously discussed, contacting local police, freezing your accounts, canceling credit cards, that type of stuff. And it even has all 3 numbers for each credit bureau. That's important as well, to notify all 3 different credit companies, so you can notify them that you've been a victim of fraud.
That is great. I'm going to translate to the customer real quick, then we'll go back to the question, because I'm so anxious to ask you some more related question.
No problem.
Kính thưa quý vị, đây là những cái tin tức rất là gần như là chúng ta đã được gọi là chỉ dẫn, hướng dẫn tối ngày để làm chuyện này, nhưng mà chúng ta vẫn bị vấp phải cái chuyện gọi là bị ăn cắp lý lịch. Thì cũng như là ông thám tử có nói rằng là trước tiên quý vị phải freeze cái credit của mình. Mình có cái là FTC đó, họ đã dặn mình rằng là trong cái đầu tiên hết là mình phải free cái credit của mình qua 3 cái credit company, chẳng hạn như Experian, Equifax và TransUnion. Quý vị nếu cần thì chúng tôi sẽ để 3 cái số điện thoại lên trên screen lên chút nữa để quý vị theo dõi, có thể gọi họ, và không để cho khi mà cảm thấy rằng là mình bị ăn cắp lý lịch, cancel ngay cái credit card mà quý vị đang xài, cancel ngay cái ATM card, thông báo cho nhà băng của mình để cho mình họ sẽ, với là sau đó mình sẽ đem tất cả những cái hồ sơ, tất cả những cái gì mà liên quan tới cái việc ăn cắp lý lịch của mình đem tới cho Police Department. Nhưng mà khi mình thâu lượm hết tất cả những tin tức đàng hoàng rồi, mình đem tới cho Police Department để cho họ giúp cho mình á, thì đồng thời mình phải kiểm soát, gọi là mỗi ngày quý vị phải lên kiểm soát hết tất cả những cái credit, những email, những cái gì của quý vị, để mà với là không có trả lời những cái phone call nào quý vị cảm thấy không có tin tưởng. Can I ask you something about the police department? After we bring everything to you, and you will give us a report, police department will give us we call a police report, or you just document down and you do it yourself. We don't know anything about it, or what? And what is the real action that you will do for us?
Sure. Yeah, be happy to explain that. Essentially what happens if we have a victim that comes into the police department, reports any type of crime, whether fraud or whatever, we will provide them with a report number. Usually within 7 to 10 business days, usually it'll start with patrol, they'll generate some type of a report, forward it up to the detective bureau where we'll start to review it. Once we review that, we will call the victim just to notify them, hey, just want to let you know we've received this report and we're going to start working on it. So If we need maybe additional documentation, like you guys had mentioned, bank statements, credit card statements, any of that type of stuff, because sometimes the initial report, you don't necessarily have everything right at that moment. So that's where the detectives will come in and follow up with whatever's needed. And then at that point, we'll kind of every few weeks or so, depending how the investigation goes, we'll provide updates. Just as this is kind of where we're at. We've written a search warrant for this, or this is the avenue that we're going down. Sometimes we've been very successful in going down an avenue to identify a suspect, and sometimes it just doesn't work out, just depending on the circumstances. Every situation is different, but we very much take pride in making sure we do the most thorough investigation as possible and try to exhaust all avenues in solving a case.
Okay, let me use my specific case. Then I will ask your advice.
Sure.
Because I want to share with the community why I got the identity theft. So this, I just found out, I just got an alert that I got identity theft. So from my credit company, my credit card company informed me, and also another company that I signed up for, and they informed me that I got identity theft because I normally freeze all my credit record, but because I refinanced my house, so they used that crack and got into my credit card. My credit report, they stole my social security number, they stole my my name, my address, all my record. But when they got all my record, they contact several credit card company and they signed up for it. And but I got alert, that's why I called each one of them, I cleared it out. However, I knew where they are going to, where they got my information from. Either from T-Mobile, selling store something. I got from T-Mobile. Then I found out the person who actually want to mail my application to that address in Garden Grove. I brought all the record to the police department. I asked what the next step I should do. But they said, you've been done everything, you freeze your credit report, you already contact all credit bureau, you did everything, then you don't need to do anything else. Is that true?
It really does depend on a case-to-case basis. You know what I mean? Every case could be different. And what I mean by that, say in your particular situation, if it's something involving T-Mobile, maybe they obtained your information somehow, some way, or they try to purchase a phone in your name or something like that. A lot of times we can try to find out when that was. There's video surveillance we can check with T-Mobile to see if we can see any type of suspect and correlate the transaction of when this person was trying to use your personal information and then correlate that to the video surveillance. We have some actually pretty cool things we can do with that. We create crime bulletins because sometimes these suspects won't just commit crimes in our city, they will commit crimes all over, and we like to collaborate and have a good partnership with other agencies, not just Orange County, but all over California, to see if we can have any type of identification. Hopefully that kind of clarifies that. And then in terms of your specific situation, you really did a great job in terms of providing everything you needed to. You contacted the credit card companies, you got the T-Mobile statements, you froze all of your credit accounts. So you did absolutely everything, and that's great. And honestly, from a lot of the cases and situations like this that we had, the residents of Garden Grove do a great job in cooperating with us and giving us everything that we need, and we really do appreciate that.
I even found out the address that they want my new credit card, mail it to them. I brought it over to police department and they said, okay, you did it right. So I don't know what to do after. Even I have the address.
Now, in mentioning that specifically there is an address that does not belong to you,
right.
One of the things that we have to determine, we can actually check the what we call premise history or the location history for that address to see who has been associated to that address, any previous law enforcement contacts, and then we can kind of situate it from there. So it could be a couple of different things. We've had situations to where, say, there was an instance where we know this address, maybe prior subjects in there have indication for fraud or that type of stuff. Or you have the other side of it where that specific address, that person could be a victim of fraud as well. And a lot of these criminals will tend to use other addresses and ship things to that address. So you have victims that will say, hey, I've got this address right here. We think this could be the suspect address. But we've had good success in terms of, trying to eliminate to see, is this person where that address listed an actual victim of a crime or the suspect? And I would say it just depends on the case in itself. Taking it one step further, say for instance the address itself it has someone that is related to fraud or that type of stuff, then we can start checking their criminal history to see if they're on probation or parole, and there's other avenues we can start going in that as well.
That's what I want the audience know, that you are going to do something for the community. It's to protect the community if we know some specifically criminal may happen. Chúng tôi đã hỏi detective là bây giờ mình phải làm như thế nào, thì chính họ cũng có những cái biện pháp để mà họ chống lại những cái ăn cắp lý lịch mà những cái cảnh sát ở Garden Grove họ làm rất là đắc lực. Tôi phải công nhận rằng là những cái gì khi mà mình đem đến Police Department, họ hỏi họ, rồi sau đó họ cũng follow up, họ cũng theo dõi, họ cũng giúp đỡ rất là nhiều. Thưa quý vị, nếu quý vị có những cái gì problem, xin gọi liên lạc với detective hoặc là Garden Grove Police Department để họ có thể giúp đỡ quý vị. Let's end the conversation today for now, then we will meet you next week. Is that okay?
Absolutely.
Okay. Cảm ơn quý vị đã theo dõi chương trình Khéo Dùng Tiền của chúng tôi. Actually, chương trình tài chính của chúng tôi mới đổi tên, chúng tôi vẫn chưa quen. Chúng tôi sẽ trở lại với quý vị về vấn đề identity theft next week.